My name is Hannah, and at 30 years old, I watched my husband unlock the front door, expecting to find my rotting corpse. It was exactly 60 days after he left me to die. I heard the familiar scrape of his key in the smart lock of our suburban Chicago home. The heavy door swung open and Liam stepped inside holding a thick cologne-soaked handkerchief tightly over his nose. He had braced himself for the stench of decay. Instead, he walked into a blindingly bright, completely empty house. The plush velvet sofas, the imported rugs, the expensive art collection we had spent years acquiring, everything was gone. The only thing left in the vast living room was a single steel chair. I was sitting on it, legs crossed, wearing a sharply tailored charcoal suit, taking a slow, deliberate sip of hot espresso. The color drained from his face instantly, his custom leather travel bag slipping from his fingers and crashing onto the bare hardwood floor. Before I reveal exactly how I turned my husband's perfect murder plot into his absolute worst nightmare, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you believe that survival is the ultimate form of revenge. To understand the absolute shock paralyzing Liam in that doorway, we have to go back to day one. 60 days ago, my life was confined to the four walls of our master bedroom. I work as a data forensics analyst, a career that requires razor-sharp mental focus and endless energy. But my body had suddenly and violently betrayed me. I was struck by a severe acute neuroinfection. It started as a dull headache, quickly spiraling into a dangerously high fever that felt like actual fire rushing through my veins. By the second morning, temporary muscle paralysis had set in. My legs felt like lead blocks glued to the mattress, and my arms were too heavy to lift even an inch. Every single breath was a grueling physical effort. I was lying in our bed staring blankly at the ceiling, desperately needing an ambulance. Liam, my husband of 4 years and a supposedly respectable financial investment journalist, stood right at the foot of the bed. He was not dialing 911. I was not holding my hand or whispering words of comfort. He was meticulously folding his designer shirts and placing them into his hard-shell suitcase. I tried to speak, forcing the words past my dry, cracked lips, begging him to call for help. He did not even look at me. Instead, he walked into the master bathroom. I heard the unmistakable rattling of plastic pill bottles, my specialized life-saving prescription medications. Medications that cost a fortune and kept my neurological symptoms from completely shutting down my respiratory system. Liam walked back into the bedroom holding all three of my prescription bottles. I watched in absolute paralyzed horror as he tossed them carelessly into his suitcase right next to his Italian leather loafers. He zipped the bag shut with a loud, final sound that echoed in the quiet room. He walked over to the bed, casually adjusting his expensive watch. He looked down at me, his eyes completely devoid of any warmth, concern, or panic. "Just sleep it off, Hannah," he said, his voice as casual as if he were discussing the weather forecast. "My family really needs this European vacation to distress. I cannot let your constant health drama ruin this trip for us." I could not scream. My vocal cords absolutely refused to obey my brain. I could only watch, trapped inside my own failing body, as the man I had vowed to spend my life with grabbed his passport from the nightstand and walked out of the room. A few moments later, the house plunged into an eerie, suffocating silence. The low, familiar hum of the central air conditioning died. The refrigerator in the kitchen powered down. He had gone down to the base and flipped the main electrical breaker. Then I heard the heavy metallic squeak of the main water valve being shut off in the utility closet. He was cutting off the water supply. No power, no water, no medication. Finally, the front door clicked shut. A second later, the heavy electronic chime of our high-tech smart lock echoed through the silent house. The system was designed to engage heavy steel deadbolts that could only be opened from the inside with power or from the outside with an administrator passkey. With the power cut, the internal manual release was physically jammed by the security mechanism. He had hard-locked the system from the outside using his mobile app. He was not just leaving a sick wife behind to suffer. He was intentionally sealing me inside a suburban tomb. He was murdering me slowly and quietly, while ensuring he would have an ironclad alibi an ocean away in Europe. The sheer gravity of his betrayal settled over me like a suffocating blanket. The fever raged, cooking my brain, while the total silence of the empty house pressed heavily against my ears. Liam was flying off to Italy with his parents, Richard and Brenda, and his sister Zoe. They were going to drink fine wine and tour ancient ruins, while my body shut down from dehydration and severe infection on our expensive mattress. I realized then that every meal, every anniversary dinner, every late-night conversation we ever shared was a calculated lie. My husband was a monster wearing a tailored suit, and he had just executed a flawless plan to dispose of me. As the sunlight shifted across the bedroom floor, turning into a long, terrifying afternoon, the temperature inside the house began to rise. My throat burned with a desperate thirst. The physical pain in my joints was excruciating, but a new kind of heat replaced my fever. It was a cold, absolute rage. I knew that if I gave in to the paralysis, Liam would win. He would return in 2 months, play the devastated widower for the police, and collect whatever life insurance money he was secretly banking on. I refused to be his victim. I refused to let my story end in this dark, silent room as a tragic footnote to his European vacation. Deep inside my immobilized body, a survival instinct ignited, telling me that I had to find a way to move, a way to fight back, and a way to make him pay. My brain was screaming at my muscles to move, but the severe neuroinfection had turned my limbs into absolute dead weight. The fever baked my skin from the inside out, leaving me drenched in a cold, shivering sweat that soaked the mattress. Every shallow breath I took felt like inhaling broken glass. I had spent 4 years building a life with this man, supporting his career as an investment journalist, sharing my income and trusting him completely. Now his true sinister nature was laid bare. The sheer audacity of Liam leaving me to die sparked a desperate adrenaline rush that cut through the paralysis just enough to fuel my rage. I dug my elbows into the expensive Egyptian cotton sheets. Inch by agonizing inch, I dragged my heavy upper body across the massive mattress. It took what felt like an absolute eternity just to reach the edge of the bed. My arms shook violently under my own weight as I pulled myself toward the large bay window overlooking the front driveway. I pressed my feverish forehead against the cool glass, gasping for air. Down below, the bright afternoon sun illuminated the ultimate betrayal. An airport shuttle van idled in our pristine driveway. Liam was standing near the open trunk, effortlessly tossing his designer luggage inside. He was not alone. The rest of his toxic family was there, laughing and chatting as if they did not have a single care in the world. My father-in-law, Richard, was checking his golf clubs, his booming laugh echoing up to my second-story window. My sister-in-law, Zoe, was busy taking selfies by the shuttle, already documenting her fabulous European getaway for her social media followers. And then there was Brenda, my mother-in-law. The woman who had spent the last 4 years making backhanded comments about my tech career, my upbringing, and my fierce independence. She stepped out of the shadow of the van, and a fresh wave of nausea hit me that had absolutely nothing to do with my illness. Around Brenda's neck, glittering brazenly in the Chicago sunlight, was a unique custom-made diamond necklace. My breath hitched in my dry throat. I knew every facet, every delicate platinum link of that piece. It was a priceless heirloom, the very last physical connection I had to my deceased mother. It was supposed to be safely tucked away in my velvet jewelry box hidden inside my locked vanity upstairs. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. While I was lying in the next room burning with a lethal fever and losing the ability to move my own legs, Brenda had casually strolled into my home, raided my personal sanctuary, and stolen my most treasured possession. And Liam let her do it. He probably even handed it to her as a sick parting gift. They were not just leaving me to die a slow, agonizing death. They were looting my life before my heart even stopped beating, dividing up my belongings like scavengers picking at a fresh carcass. The sheer entitlement of it made my blood boil hotter than the fever ravaging my system. I remembered all the times Brenda had looked down her nose at me, claiming my forensic data job was unladylike, yet she had no problem wearing the diamonds my mother had worked her entire life to buy. I watched Brenda pat the diamond pendant against her chest, A smug, self-satisfied smile plastered across her face as she climbed into the back of the shuttle. Liam was the last to board. For a fraction of a second he paused.